Hello and welcome. If you are watching the replay, I'm so glad to have you here. My given name is Timothy Waterman. As you'll see in the description of this video, I do often go by the nickname of Beau, and I'm excited to be jumping on here and sharing a spiritual slash metaphysical teaching. And the reason I am excited is because this lesson that I'm going to be sharing today is one that I continue to work on myself. I've come a really long way with it, and it just continues to be one of those cornerstones, like the foundation of a really solid life that I, again, continue to focus on and make a priority for me because as I've made this a priority, the quality of my life improves. And that's the whole point. That's why I do everything that I do. That's why I've studied spirituality and metaphysics for almost 13 years now, because it continues to improve the quality of my life. And I don't know about you. For me, I'm all about the quality, allowing the quality to improve. That's another big thing that I've realized is that I'm the one that has to allow the quality of my life to improve. There's not some, mystery force that's keeping me from allowing it. Like I actually am the one that gets to allow it. And you might wonder, well, why wouldn't someone like me or why wouldn't someone like you allow the quality of their lives to improve? And what I've discovered is that as humans who have been raised, who grew up in these very specific societies throughout the past at least several thousand years, we've just absorbed a lot of limitation, and we've also absorbed, for some reason I can't say this word this morning, we've also absorbed, it's like my lips were getting stuck. We've also absorbed a lot of really self-condemning perspectives that really cause us to feel at odds with our own self. In our inner world, our emotions, our thoughts, our storylines, our narratives, the stories that we're telling about our lives, they all carry a tone, and therefore they all carry a frequency and a vibration. And so it's really good to be aware of what the frequency and the vibration of our most dominant stories that are playing in our head are. Nikola Tesla is famously quoted as saying, I believe it's Tesla, I'm like 97% sure, is quoted as saying that if you want to understand the universe, and we're a part of that, we are an expression of life, therefore we're an expression of this universe, then it would be really good for you to understand frequency and vibration and how everything functions and works on frequency and vibration. And that's what I've been learning about for 13 years. And so, to bring it into today's message, worry or stories that have to do with causing us to worry carry a frequency and a vibration. I see someone watching live. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to open up my chat. Sometimes I forget to do that. So, if you're watching live and you'd like to interact, I'm so happy to have you here. And yeah, feel free to say hello. Feel free to ask a question, share an aha or an insight of your own. I love live interaction, so thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. And that goes for the replay too. If you're watching this on the replay, please also feel free to leave a comment, any ahas that you got, any revelations or anything that you just want to interact and share with. I appreciate that on the replay too. And so again, tying everything I just said into today's focus message, worry not for tomorrow. To me, this is a teaching that has really transcended the tests of time. The phrasing that I'm using specifically is attributed to Yeshua, and I have seen very similar phrases in other world spiritual practices, specifically in the East. I've definitely seen in Eastern traditions, it's talked about how worry is essentially a waste of energy. It really doesn't serve us in any way. Like, we have free will, so we can worry if we choose to. It's just that as I have become more conscious in the past 13 years, I've really seen as I've connected with my own body. Because here's the thing, there's a mind-body connection. What the mind entertains, the body will react to. That's what I've seen for me, and I know many others have also seen this for them, that what the mind entertains, the body will react to on a physiological level. And sometimes that means going into fight or flight. Fight or flight can very well release stress chemicals, and those stress chemicals can have a real effect on our body. These are just things that I've seen, that I've studied along the way, and what I know to be true for me. And so because I want to take care of this body, and because I know the stress chemicals, if I keep releasing them through going into fight or flight over and over again, I know that's eventually going to have a deteriorating effect on my body. That's just what I know to be true for me. And I'm not really a fan of that. I don't really want that to be the case. I don't want to keep putting my body into fight or flight when, in fact, in the present moment in my life, I'm safe. Because fight or flight essentially is the body reacting to danger. And the body will react whether it's a real in-person danger. So if there's a, oops, wasn't expecting that. I guess I guess life wants to make that emphasize that. That's kind of funny. Just have to roll with it. Um, I guess life is emphasizing that point. The body, see, that was a real life event. There we go. That was a real life event that my body just reacted to because it was a bit of a loud noise, caused my body to react. So that was a real life uh, event, loud noise, sudden change that I wasn't expecting. So my body reacted to that. So our body will react to real life events if they feel threatening, and that can definitely cause us to go into fight or flight. And what I've learned is that the body can also go into fight or flight simply by imagining outcomes that we wouldn't prefer, what we often refer to as worst case scenarios. In a lot of cultures and society, we've actually been conditioned to be constantly on the lookout for worst case scenarios, trying to prevent them at all times. And you're your own person. You can judge for yourself or discern for yourself if that works for you. That didn't work for me. That caused me to have a very stress-filled life, to believe that I always had to be on the lookout or be prepared for worst case scenarios. That caused me to live in a state of worry and stress. That wasn't working for me. I could feel the effect it was having on my body day in and day out. And I just don't, after all these years, I just don't feel or believe the universe to be a threatening universe in general. I don't feel that's the case. I feel that I am in a friendly universe that wants the best for me. I also recognize there is free will. And so through my own choices, I can sometimes, you know, allow drama to occur in my life based on my choices. So an example of that, if we get angry and we cause kind of like a disruption in the environment, someone else might get angry, and when they're angry, you know who knows, like that, that can lead to uncertainty in life, and it's usually not the best equation when two people are angry. So all that to say that through our own actions, we can sometimes create or invite drama. However, a lot of the time, what I've seen is it really can have a lot to do with our own actions. It often does have a lot to do with our own actions. And again, I'm speaking from real life experience because as I've changed me, as I've allowed more of my soul self to be embodied in my human self, just so much of the drama has left my life. And that's one thing that I did see, is that a lot of the drama that was in my life before was actually instigated by my own unconscious reactions in life. Me reacting to events in life, me getting triggered. That's a word that many people know these days, getting triggered. So a lot of my triggered states were actually a big cause of drama in my life before. And as I've worked on my triggers consciously, over and over and over again, because these things often take practice, just the amount of drama in my life has, just come down and down and down and down and down, which is really nice. And again, I saw that a lot of it was coming from my own reactions, my own triggered reactions to life. So the more I've become someone who is not triggered by so many things, just the drama has come down and down and down. That's what I've seen for me. And as I've worked with others, because I've mentored and coached others, as I've worked with others, I've seen that a lot of the drama in their life, based on what they've told me, has a lot to do with, triggered moments as well. And no shame or blame. It's just that as humans, as civilized humans, so to say, humans in society, again, we were conditioned to become very reactive. We have had a lot of personal trauma, collective trauma, which has caused us to be highly triggered in a lot of ways too. So no shame or blame for that. I'm just painting the picture of where we've been. And we also individually and therefore collectively have a choice to begin to see our triggers and to understand the things that the trauma in our body is trying to show us, so that we can release, the past, we can release emotions. Again, I'm just speaking from my experience as I've processed my own trauma and traumatic patterns, patterns of being triggered and released all of that. I've just become a much more calm, peaceful, less reactive human being who's more in the moment, is more focused in the moment, and therefore enjoying a better quality of life. So to get back to worrying, again, I want to bring up that really simple phrase that's been passed down through time: worry not for tomorrow. And then it goes on to say, for tomorrow will take care of itself. And then it uses an example that, if the birds are eating every day, why wouldn't life, why wouldn't this universe, why wouldn't existence, or if you prefer the word God, why wouldn't that greater all encompassing presence take care of you? And again, it's a very simple statement, it's a very simple teaching, and usually the most profound ones are very simple to understand. And it can definitely take, for a lot of us cultured, civilized human beings, a lot of practice to embody the teaching. Because to me, that's the point, is to embody these teachings if we are aware of the power that is within them. That's what happened for me about 13 years ago. I just really looked at that teaching: worry not for tomorrow. Tomorrow will take care of itself. If the birds are eating, why wouldn't you be eating? And I feel this points to a lot of survival patterns that most of humanity probably still has. This fear that existence is against us, this fear that existence does not have love for us, this fear that everything may fall apart and go wrong. These are some really heavy, entrained survival patterns, and to me, they come from a sense of separation, meaning that we feel separate from existence. Like there's existence and there's us, and we're just on our own to try to figure it out and make it all happen. That's a state of separation. And separation, in my experience, can feel very stressful, can feel high pressure. It can feel like, you know, for lack of a better phrase, like being in the rat race or being on a hamster wheel, always trying to get where it's going to be okay and never feeling okay right now. So if you can relate to that, that's why I've gone on this exploration for myself, because I used to live in a state where I never felt safe, I never felt okay, and I was worrying all the time. And so I was like, well, this can't be what life is. Life has to be better than this. So I started to lean in and learn from these wisdom teachings, many different global wisdom teachings that have been handed down through the centuries and the millennia, so that I could begin to become someone who wasn't worrying 24/7. That's what my life felt like 13 years ago. And so I really began to focus on that and learn from these teachings. I wanted to embody these teachings. And so, again, it's still one that I'm working on to this day, because I see how my mind, trained by society, wants to go out into the future and make sure that everything is going to be okay, make sure that everything's going to fall into place, make sure that I'll have everything that my mind feels that I need to be okay. Like, I still see that pattern, and because I've been practicing for so long and I continue to practice, and there's been times where I've fallen off this practice, and so the intensity of the worry picks up. And then I've seen how the intensity of the worry has picked up, and I've been like, okay, I got to get back on this practice because I'm not a fan of how the worry causes my body to feel, because I'm very aware of my body, and that it puts my body in a tense and almost scared state if my mind is focused on worries. And so anytime I've gotten off track or off the path, I'm like, okay, it's time to rein it back in and really focus on this practice again, because again, I want to take care of my body. It's in love and appreciation and respect for my body. Of course, my mind too, uh, and my body, because my body is a huge part of this human picture. It's like it's like 80% from here down of the human picture. So I really want to take care of my body too. And that's why it's so important to me to embody this teaching. And so, if this is resonating with you, you might say, well, what does it look like for me to practice this? So, presence, number one, if you've studied spirituality or mindfulness at all, presence means to me connecting to the body. The body always exists in the present moment. And the body, I feel like for a lot of people, most of the time is actually safe. Most of the time, these human bodies are in a room somewhere, whether it's a room or an office or a lounge or a coffee shop. Most of the time, I feel that these bodies are pretty much safe. You know, sometimes in traffic, maybe it can get a little bit hairy. And so the body might get a little bit tense in certain traffic situations. But I feel like probably like 80% of the time, like these bodies are usually in a room somewhere or they're in nature, you know, in a backyard or a park where, you know, usually there's not a real life threat. And yet, you know, the mind can still leave the present moment and begin to worry. And so I've really focused through self awareness just to recognize how I'm feeling throughout the day in my body. I'm very connected to my body now. That's been another practice, and it's taken time and it's been worth it. So if I feel off in my body, if I'm feeling any fear, if I'm feeling tenseness in my body, if I'm feeling just a little bit threatened, meaning like feeling like I have to act really fast, you know, take really fast action to make sure everything's going to be okay. When I notice that, I'm like, okay, what is going on up here? What is the story? What is the concern? What is the fear up here? And as I recognize it, it helps me slow it down. I've also learned through mindfulness that slowing down the breath is a really good way to slow down the mind. This is something, again, I've learned from mindfulness. And so I practice that for me. That does tend to work for me. You know, these tools, these practices that I'm offering, I can't make any guarantees. What I can say is how they've worked for me. And so slowing down my breath has been really good. Looking around the room, noticing what's in the room around me, looking at my hand, because my hand is here in this moment. Looking at my hand, feeling my body, feeling the energy in my body, feeling the energy in my feet. This has all really helped me begin to ground back into the present moment. Another thing that's even better than that is taking some kind of physical action that's unfamiliar in the moment. So I remember there was one day where I felt that I was kind of spiraling quite intensely, and I really wanted to come back into the moment and get out of that fear that day. And so I found a yoga routine on the Apple Fitness app, and I did the yoga routine, and I hadn't done any yoga in a long time. So because my body wasn't really familiar with this routine or the moves, my brain became very focused in the moment of wanting to try and do the moves correctly, wanting to try and do the postures correctly. And because my mind was so now focused on my body and what my body was trying to do in the moment, that brought me so present. And so this routine was probably at least 20 minutes. And after that routine, I felt so in my body and I felt so present. And it felt so good to be completely present with my body in the moment, where in fact I was safe and I had just done this nice yoga routine. So that's another thing that I've learned from me is taking physical action in the moment that's kind of like unfamiliar in the sense that I'm not used to it. So in this case, that yoga routine was very outside of what I was used to. And so that really helped me to connect to my body and ground in this moment. So those are a few of the things that have worked for me and a few things that I practice. I also am someone that allows myself to feel emotions. So if some emotions have arisen, I'll pause and just allow myself to feel emotions, to allow the energy just to move up and through. Because I've seen for me that if I resist emotions that are here, and usually the emotions that are uncomfortable have arrived in my body based on worry, based on focusing on the future and fearing outcomes may not be favorable, that's usually what causes my body to feel a certain way. And so when I just pause and breathe and feel my emotions, to me, it just allows the emotions to rise up and move through. And as I felt them and released them, then again, I'm able just to slow down my breathing, look around, feel the connection to my hands, my feet. And if I need to, take that kind of like out of the ordinary action to really ground even more into the present moment. So that's something that also has worked. Those are the things that have worked really well for me. And I share this because, again, like I'm all about improving the quality of my experience in the present moment of life now. Life is only ever happening now in this moment, and that's where the quality of life that we can have exists. So if I'm worrying, if I'm distracted, I'm not present, then I can't enjoy life right now, where life is actually happening. And that's been a commitment I've made to myself over and over, is to enjoy the life that's happening now more and more, which is why I consistently practice coming present, coming present. And to me, that builds a bit of muscle memory, if you will. Every time I practice being present, practice coming back to this moment, taking myself out of the unknown future and living life now, that does get more familiar in my body. And I have even more awareness of any time I kind of slip away into the unknown future, if you will. The last thing I'll point out on this note is that I feel that this teaching points to trust. Trusting that we are a part of this grand thing called life, trusting that we're not separate from life. And that's why I feel we hear, if the birds are eating tomorrow, why would you not? To me, that points to the fact that we as human beings are not separate from life. We are also an expression of life. I have a little bit of the sun peeking in today. Sometimes when the sun gets intense, it kind of comes in. uh, to me, that points to a reminder that we are, in fact, also an expression of life, that life cares for us, that the creative force behind existence cares for us just as much as it cares for the birds and the turtles, even the snails. Everything else is getting what it needs to have a life and to keep living a physical life. And so I feel this teaching is also inviting us to remember that we are a part of this grand thing called life. We're not separate from it. Therefore, we are cared for, we are loved. And so, why wouldn't life move all the pieces into place to make sure that we get what we need to keep having this physical life? Why would we assume that's not the case? To me, again, that points to this separation that somehow we learned, which to me has a lot to do with just kind of how societies have formed themselves over the past few thousand years, feeling separate from life, feeling life is against us, rather than recognizing that we are, in fact, life. And so, of course, life cares for us, because look at everything else. Life cares for the flowers, life cares for the trees, yes, the birds, and the turtles, and the seeds, because, many seeds get what they need to become a tree. So I know this is all very simple, and that's the point, and that's the point of a teaching like that. If the birds are eating tomorrow, why wouldn't you? So to me, it really also points to, do we have trust in the big picture? Do we have trust in the creative force, the creative intelligence behind existence? Do we really trust? And if we don't, it's something to recognize that we don't have trust. And then it's a personal choice whether we want to begin to build that trust and to begin to feel safe in this big thing called life, to feel safe in connection to the bigger picture. That's a choice that each one of us can only make for ourselves, because we do have free will in this whole human experience thing. For me, I wanted to lean into trust. I wanted to feel safe in the bigger picture. And so that's something that I've continued to cultivate for myself. And it's a daily thing. At this point, it's been a daily thing to really every day remember that I am also life. If the birds are being taken care of day in and day out, why would my future, because there's only really ever this now moment, but in a later now moment, it'll be what we call the future. So if all needs are met today, why why would I assume that all needs would not be met 10 days from now, 15 days from now, 30 days from now? And another helpful thing to do with this is to reflect on past life experience. So, yes, there may have been life events where things felt chaotic or traumatic or high intense or drama. And even if certain past events felt like that, were your daily needs always met? Did you always have what you needed to keep living each and every day? To keep living. So, talking about shelter, water, food, whatever you needed to make it each day. And I know that some people have been through some really tough circumstances where maybe even the shelter part was unstable. And still, if they're still here today, they're still living on this earth today, there is support coming in. If people are still living today, somehow they're getting food, somehow they're getting water. I know sometimes the shelter part can be a little bit tricky if people have experienced homelessness. And, I also know that there's a lot of support out there. I've seen stories of people who have been through that and they were able to find support and they were able to become a person that was able to rise out of that. So, I know some people's minds may go to very extreme circumstances, and I know extreme circumstances can happen. I just have seen, personally, I have seen stories where when people decided that they want to get a certain kind of support, they did find the support, they were able to rise out of that situation. I've seen people that have, I know one close friend who has done this for themselves actually, and I've heard other stories of people that, did find their way through an uncertain experience such as that. So, and still somehow, these people were eating, somehow they were drinking water, those needs were being met. So, all this to say that trust is such a big part of this equation, a huge part of this equation, and only each one of us can decide how much we are going to trust. And that's a question that I have asked myself, that I continue to ask myself, and I continue to practice each and every day. What's my level of trust, even in uncertainty? Uh, hello, Sai. I'm hoping I'm saying your name right, Sai. Hello, thank you for being here. Appreciate you being here. Yeah, so that's a personal choice, and it's one that I continue to make for myself each and every day. What's my level of trust in the system, in life, in the creator, the creative intelligence behind life, whatever you call that for you? What's my level of trust, and how will I walk with that trust throughout my day? And if I slip out of trust, how am I going to bring myself back? Because again, I know that worrying doesn't serve me in this moment. I know that it very greatly affects my body in this moment in a way that really isn't good for my overall health. And so that's why I've made this practice so important, to come back to the moment, to trust the bigger picture, so that I can really take care of this life, this body that I have been given in this moment. So that's a bit about the practices that I have found incorporated and integrated for me. So I hope this has all been helpful. If you have found anything helpful, feel free to leave a comment if you would like. You can also find more about me and the mentoring, the coaching, the things that I offer in the description of this video. You can find links for that. So I thank you so much for watching. The sun's kind of coming out to play towards the end here, so it's a good time to begin to exit this teaching here. But thanks again for showing up live, and if you're on the replay, thanks for watching the replay. So happy to have you here. Hope you got something from this, and until next time,